The sound of a jail door closing is a hard sound. It is a heavy final noise that echoes long after the metal has settled into the frame. It makes people afraid. When a person is arrested in the United States, it is normal to feel lost and overwhelmed. The world suddenly shrinks to the size of a small room or the back of a police car. Many people know the words of the Miranda warning from television shows. You have the right to remain silent. But few people truly understand what happens after the handcuffs click shut. The reality of the process is often a blur of confusion and fear. Panic is a natural response to being in custody. However, panic often causes people to make mistakes. It can make people say things they should not say, giving information that can be used against them later. It can make a person fail to provide a simple phone number for a family member. Knowing the steps that follow an arrest can help. Understanding the procedure can lower the level of fear. It can provide a map for a journey that feels chaotic. This knowledge can help you protect your rights at every stage. This essay will explain each of these steps in order. It will use plain words and simple examples. This is Rights and Reality USA. The journey through the criminal justice system is not a single event. It is a sequence of stages. Each stage has its own rules. Each stage has its own purpose. Each stage has its own set of potential outcomes. From the moment of arrest to the final verdict, there are procedures that must be followed by law enforcement and the courts. Knowing what to expect can empower a person to navigate this process more effectively. It can mean the difference between making an informed decision and making a choice based on fear. This guide is designed to demystify the process, providing clarity in a time of great uncertainty. We will walk through the system one step at a time. If you are arrested in the United States, what actually happens next? Many people know about Miranda rights, but few understand what happens after the handcuffs go on. Understanding the process reduces fear and protects rights. Welcome to Rights and Reality USA. An arrest begins when a police officer takes you into custody. This means you are not free to leave. For an arrest to be lawful, the police must have probable cause. Probable cause is a legal standard. It means there are reasonable grounds, based on facts and circumstances, to believe a person has committed a crime. It is more than a simple hunch or a vague suspicion. It is a lower standard than the proof required to convict someone at a trial. The police must point to specific facts supporting their belief that a crime occurred and you committed it. There are two primary ways an arrest can happen. First, an arrest warrant. A warrant is a legal document signed by a judge or magistrate. It authorizes police to arrest a specific person for a specific crime. To get a warrant, police present evidence to a judge that establishes probable cause. Second, a warrantless arrest. An officer can arrest if they personally witness a crime, or if they develop probable cause through investigation. For example, witness statements, or physical evidence found at the scene. Warrantless arrests are common for serious crimes. Felonies. Officers do not have to explain every detail at the scene, but they must meet the probable cause standard. After the arrest and transport to the police station, the next step is the booking process. Booking is the administrative procedure where the police create an official record of your arrest. It is a formal entry into the criminal justice system. The process involves a series of standardized steps. First, the police will take your fingerprints. Your prints are scanned and entered into local, state, and national databases to check for prior arrests or outstanding warrants. Next, they will take your photograph, commonly known as a mugshot. This photo serves as a visual record of your identity at the time of the arrest. During booking, an officer will record your personal information: full name, date of birth, home address, height, weight, eye color. They will ask you these questions directly. The police will also take your personal property: wallet, phone, keys, belt, shoelaces collected, inventoried, and stored for safekeeping. You will usually be given a receipt for these items. Most of your property will be returned to you upon your release, but items considered evidence, such as your phone, may be held much longer, while police seek a warrant to search them. After the booking process is complete, the next critical question: will you be released from custody while your case is pending? This decision often involves bail. Bail is money or property you deposit with the court to ensure you return for future court dates. Many jurisdictions use a bail schedule, a list suggesting standard bail amounts. Minor offense, a few $100s. Serious felony, tens of thousands or more. The schedule is a starting point for the judge. Or release on your own recognizance. Released on your promise to appear, no money required. Typically for low-level, non-violent offenses. For people with strong community ties, a stable job, family living in the area, the judge must believe you are not a flight risk and do not pose a danger to the public. An OR release is the most favorable outcome. If bail is required, pay the full amount in cash to the court. That cash is returned at the end of the case if you attend all court dates. Or use a bail bondsman. A bondsman posts the full bail for a non-refundable fee, typically about 10%. The bondsman may require collateral, like a car title, or a house deed. Person's hands signing a bail bond agreement with a pen. Judges conduct a risk assessment when deciding release. Factors include your criminal history, the seriousness of the current charges, your ties to the community, whether you are a risk to flee or a danger to public safety. The arraignment is your first formal appearance in court after being arrested and charged with a crime. The arraignment is your first formal appearance in court after being arrested and charged with a crime. The arraignment is your first formal appearance in court after being arrested and charged with a crime. This hearing usually takes place within 24 to 72 hours of your arrest if you are still in custody. The purpose of the arraignment is to officially begin the judicial proceedings. At the hearing, a judge will preside. The judge will inform you of the specific criminal charges that the prosecutor has filed against you. The charges will be read out loud in open court, so there is a clear and public record of the accusations you are facing. The judge will also remind you of your constitutional rights, including the right to an attorney. A key event at the arraignment is entering a plea. You will be asked how you plead to the charges. The most common pleas are guilty, not guilty, no contest. A plea of no contest, or nolo contendere, means you are not admitting guilt, but are accepting the punishment for the crime. In most cases, especially at this early stage, the standard advice from lawyers is to plead not guilty. Pleading not guilty is not a lie. After the arraignment, the case enters the pretrial phase. This period can last for several weeks or even months, depending on the complexity of the case. One of the most important processes during this time is called discovery. Discovery is the formal process of exchanging information and evidence between the prosecution and the defense. The prosecutor is required to turn over all the evidence they have, including police reports, witness statements, lab results, photographs, and any evidence that might be favorable to the defendant. This process allows your defense lawyer to see the strength of the government's case and look for weaknesses. Based on the evidence received during discovery, your defense lawyer may file pretrial motions. A motion is a formal request asking the court to make a legal ruling on a specific issue. One of the most common and powerful motions is a motion to suppress evidence. This motion argues that certain evidence against you was obtained illegally and should be excluded from the trial. For example, if police conducted a search of your car or home without a valid warrant and without a legal exception, while motions and discovery are happening, another crucial process is often taking place. Plea negotiations. A plea negotiation, or plea bargain, is a discussion between the prosecutor and your defense lawyer aimed at resolving the case without a trial. The vast majority of criminal cases in the United States, well over 90%, do not go to trial. Instead, they are resolved through a plea agreement. This is a fundamental reality of the American justice system. It is a process driven by risk management, resource limitations, and the desire for a certain outcome from both the prosecution and the defense. In a typical plea negotiation, the prosecutor may offer to reduce the charges against you in exchange for a guilty plea. For example, a felony charge might be reduced to a misdemeanor, which carries less severe penalties. Another common offer involves sentencing. The prosecutor might agree to recommend a specific, lighter sentence to the judge if you plead guilty. This could mean recommending probation instead of jail time, or a shorter prison term than you might face if convicted at trial. The goal for the defense is to secure the most favorable outcome possible under the circumstances. For the prosecution, plea bargains are a way to guarantee a conviction and save the time, expense, and uncertainty of a trial. Trials are unpredictable, and a jury could always acquit the defendant. For the defendant, a plea bargain offers a chance to limit the potential damage. It provides a certain outcome and avoids the risk of receiving a much harsher sentence after being found guilty at trial. The trial proceeds through several stages. The prosecutor begins with opening statements. The defense attorney begins with opening statements. Opening statements outline what they intend to prove. The prosecutor presents the case in chief, calling witnesses, introducing evidence. The defense cross-examines the prosecutor's witnesses. After the prosecution rests, the defense may present its own case, though it is not required to. If the defense presents witnesses, the prosecutor can cross-examine them. After all evidence is presented, the prosecutor gives a closing argument. The defense gives a closing argument. After instructions from the judge, the jury retires to deliberate in private. Their goal is a unanimous verdict. If the jury finds the defendant not guilty, that's an acquittal, and the defendant is immediately released. If the jury finds the defendant guilty, the case moves to sentencing. If the jury cannot agree, it's a hung jury. The judge declares a mistrial. The prosecutor may dismiss the case or try the case again with a new jury. If a defendant is found guilty at trial or pleads guilty as part of an agreement, the final stage in the trial court is sentencing. Sentencing is the hearing where the judge determines the punishment. This hearing may occur immediately after the verdict or may be scheduled for a later date to allow time for preparation. Before the hearing, a probation officer often prepares a presentencing report. This report provides the judge with detailed information about the defendant's background criminal history, the impact of the crime on any victims. Both the prosecutor and the defense attorney will have an opportunity to make arguments about what they believe is an appropriate sentence. Sentences can vary widely depending on the crime and the jurisdiction. Punishments can include fines, probation, community service, restitution to the victim, or a period of incarceration in jail or prison. Judges often have a range of sentencing options guided by state or federal laws. They will consider aggravating factors and mitigating factors. These can include the defendant's role in the offense, their expression of remorse, and their potential for rehabilitation. The victim may also be given an opportunity to make a victim impact statement. A case does not always end with the trial court's judgment. A case can be dismissed by a judge at any point in the process if there is a fatal legal flaw. The steps that follow an arrest in the United States follow a clear, though often slow, order. An arrest based on probable cause leads to booking. Booking is followed by a bail review that decides release or detention. The case then moves to arraignment. Charges are read. A plea is entered. Pretrial begins. Discovery. Motions. Plea negotiations. If no agreement, the case goes to trial. A verdict follows. And if needed, a sentence. This path can be long and extremely stressful. Remember two simple but powerful rules. First, exercise your right to remain silent. Use a short, clear statement. I am going to remain silent, and I would like a lawyer. Stop talking after that. Second, do not physically resist arrest. Do not argue with officers about evidence at the scene. Challenge the case later, in a controlled setting with a lawyer. Following these rules can prevent making things worse. Knowing these steps lowers fear of the unknown. It helps you understand what's happening and make better choices. It helps protect your fundamental rights. If facing arrest, secure legal representation. Ask for a public defender if you can't afford one. Follow all court orders. Show up for every scheduled date. Communicate openly with your lawyer. The system is intimidating, but knowledge provides a steady hand.